Hello, I'm Maruk Said, your microbiology guide. Let's explore in-depth micro techniques and uncover groundbreaking insight together on this educational journey into the fascinating realms of microbes.
Natural versus artificial selection explained. Real-life examples and key differences. Table of contents. Natural selection definition. Artificial selection definition. Key differences. Natural selection versus artificial selection. Examples of natural selection. Examples of artificial selection. Natural selection definition. Natural selection is a process of adaptation by an organism to the changing environment through selective changes in its genotype or genetic composition. It is one of the four primary mechanisms of evolution, alongside mutation, genetic drift, and migration. The concept of natural selection was popularized by Charles Darwin during his studies on evolution. According to Darwin, natural selection is not an intentional process, but is driven by changes in the environment and the genotype of organisms. The mechanism of natural selection preserves genetic changes that increase an organism's chances of survival and reproduction, passing them down to future generations. Genetic changes that are less advantageous tend to disappear over multiple generations. This process can lead to the formation of new niches and potentially result in speciation, making natural selection an essential mechanism of evolution. Natural selection can occur due to differences in survival, fertility, mating success, or other aspects of the life cycle. Even small heritable changes can lead to natural selection if passed on over many generations. Through this process, nature selects organisms with beneficial traits, leading to a reproductive advantage and evolutionary change. The concept of fitness is central to natural selection and is defined not only by an organism's lifespan, but also by its reproductive success. An animal that lives half as long but has twice as many surviving offspring is considered more fit and thus more likely to be selected by nature. Competition also drives natural selection, where more fit individuals outcompete less fit ones for resources such as food and shelter. This competition leads to the survival and reproduction of the more fit individuals, while the less fit may die out. Natural selection is a gradual process that takes many generations to show noticeable effects. It occurs within natural populations and contributes to biological diversity, which may be random. This increased diversity results in a rise in heterozygous genotypes within a species. Examples of natural selection include the evolution of long-necked giraffes and the adaptation of birds' beak size and shape according to their feeding habits. If you have watched till here, don't forget to subscribe to Family of Science Lovers. Press the bell icon button so you are always updated. Artificial selection definition. Artificial selection, also known as selective breeding, is the process in which humans identify desirable traits in animals and plants and breed them to develop preferred phenotypic traits. While it uses the same basic mechanism as natural selection, artificial selection is a human-controlled process, unlike natural selection, which occurs due to natural causes. The concept of artificial selection is based on studies by Charles Darwin, who showed how selective breeding can bring about desirable changes over time. Unlike natural selection, artificial selection does not lead to evolution or speciation. Artificial selection is a faster process, with noticeable effects appearing within a few generations. Domesticated animals and plants are chosen for breeding based on desirable phenotypic traits to create crossbred species with improved qualities. Farmers select organisms to increase productivity and improve quality. In animals, artificial selection begins with purebred individuals that have desirable traits, which are then bred with other purebred animals to enhance and preserve superior qualities. Methods of artificial selection in animals include inbreeding, line breeding, and outcrossing. Offspring from selective breeding often exhibit hybrid vigor or increased vigor, though in some cases the quality may decline. A similar process is used in plant breeding, where wild plants are domesticated into uniform and predictable agricultural varieties. Plants with beneficial traits like high productivity are selectively bred to maintain and enhance those traits. Selective breeding of plants has been practiced for thousands of years for agriculture and is now also used in transgenic plant research involving homozygous genes. Although artificial selection is usually intentional, it may occur unintentionally during farming and lead to either desirable or undesirable results. Advantages of artificial selection include increased productivity, healthier offspring, and faster and easier analysis of offspring traits. Disadvantages include the inability to apply it to an entire population simultaneously and the requirement of controlled environments like laboratories or greenhouses. Artificial selection reduces genetic diversity in a population because only the most fit individuals are bred, which increases the proportion of homozygous genotypes. Examples of artificial selection include dog breeding to create new breeds and crossbreeding in cash crops such as wheat and rice. Key differences: natural selection versus artificial selection. Natural selection is a process of adaptation by an organism to the changing environment through selective changes in its genotype or genetic composition, whereas artificial selection, also known as selective breeding, is the process in which humans identify and breed animals or plants with desirable traits to develop specific phenotypic characteristics. Natural selection is a natural process driven by environmental factors, while artificial selection is a human-controlled or artificial process. Natural selection occurs in natural populations under natural environmental conditions, whereas artificial selection takes place in domesticated populations managed by humans. In natural selection, the survival chances of a fit organism increase over time, while in artificial selection, the survival of an organism can be at risk if the breeding process is not handled properly. Natural selection is a slow process that takes many generations to show visible effects, whereas artificial selection is comparatively faster and can produce noticeable changes within days or weeks. Natural selection is controlled by nature and random environmental pressures, while artificial selection is closely controlled by human choices and intervention. Natural selection can affect all organisms in the wild, whereas artificial selection is selective and limited to specific groups of animals and plants chosen by humans. Traits favored in natural selection are based on the adaptive advantages they provide in a given environment, while traits favored in artificial selection are chosen based on human preferences or economic value. In natural selection, only beneficial or favorable traits that enhance survival and reproduction are inherited over successive generations. In contrast, Artificial selection allows only selected traits, whether naturally beneficial or not, to be passed on. Natural selection influences the entire population of a species over time, while artificial selection affects only the selected individuals subjected to breeding. Natural selection results in increased biological diversity, whereas artificial selection tends to decrease genetic diversity by focusing on specific desirable traits. Natural selection contributes to speciation and long-term evolution, while artificial selection does not promote evolution or the formation of new species. Natural selection acts on a broad scale throughout natural environments, whereas artificial selection is limited to selected individuals of economic or domestic importance. Offspring produced through natural selection may exhibit hybrid vigor, while hybrid vigor may be reduced or lost in artificial selection due to continuous inbreeding for desired traits. Natural selection requires no human involvement and occurs without effort, whereas artificial selection can be labor-intensive and costly. Natural selection increases the proportion of heterozygous genotypes in a population, while artificial selection increases the proportion of homozygous genotypes due to repeated selection for specific traits. Examples of natural selection include the evolution of long-necked giraffes and the variation in bird beaks according to feeding habits. Examples of artificial selection include dog breeding to create new breeds and crossbreeding in crops like wheat and rice. Examples of natural selection: selection of long-necked giraffes. The selection of long-necked giraffes from short-necked giraffes is a well-known example of natural selection. Historically, both long-necked and short-necked giraffes coexisted. Over time, food sources near the ground became scarce, forcing giraffes to rely on tall trees for leaves. Long-necked giraffes could reach the higher leaves easily, while short-necked giraffes could not. Due to limited food access, short-necked giraffes began to die out, whereas long-necked giraffes survived and reproduced. This scenario illustrates how an environmental change, scarcity of ground-level food, favored the survival of better adapted individuals. As a result, long-necked giraffes became more common in the population through natural selection. Sexual selection in peacocks. In peacocks, sexual selection occurs through competition among males to attract female mates. Male peacocks develop long, colorful, and eye-catching tails to appeal to female peahens. These attractive tails play no direct role in survival, food collection, or reproductive ability. However, females prefer males with more dazzling tails, leading to higher mating success for those males. As a result, males with more attractive tails are naturally selected over those with shorter or less vibrant tails. This type of selection, based on mating preferences rather than survival, is known as sexual selection. Similar traits are observed in other birds such as ducks and tropical birds, where males display more decorative features than females. If you have watched till here, don't forget to subscribe to Family of Science Lovers. Press the bell icon button so you are always updated. Examples of artificial selection. Dog breeding. Dog breeding is a widely practiced form of artificial selection, with evidence suggesting it began around 14,000 years ago. In ancient times, dogs were bred primarily to create friendlier, faster, and more useful versions of their wild ancestors. These early breeds were selected to improve hunting efficiency and provide better protection for human owners. As human needs evolved, the purpose of breeding shifted toward roles like guarding homes and deterring intruders. Breeds such as greyhounds were interbred to produce strong, fast, and alert dogs. In modern times, the focus of artificial selection has shifted again, with many people keeping dogs as companions. As a result, dog breeding today often emphasizes friendly temperaments and appealing appearances, leading to breeds like poodles and bulldogs. Selection of cash crops. Artificial selection in crop plants has been practiced for thousands of years to enhance desirable traits. The ancestor of modern wheat is believed to be Triticum monococcum, or einkorn wheat, first cultivated in Asia around 40,000 years ago. Early wheat plants were inbred or crossbred with other species to increase yield, adaptability, and diversity. Over time, selective breeding led to the development of various wheat species suited for different uses. Today, specific wheat species are grown for distinct purposes. For example, wheat used in beer production differs from that used in pasta and noodles. These specialized species were developed by selecting and breeding plants with traits best suited to their intended use. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, press the bell icon button. Thank you!